Welcome to Athens City Council. This evening we will be meeting in council committees. The meeting will be called to order by the City Council President, who will then pass discussion over to a respective committee. The chair of the committee will introduce the discussion topics and provide an overview of the issues at hand. If needed, members of the administration will offer brief statements to provide further context. We will then welcome input from the community. Any citizens who wish to speak will be asked to state their name and address, both verbally and on the sign and sheet located at the podium. Individuals will be given one opportunity to share their thoughts, and the committee chair will have the authority to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Once all citizens have had the opportunity to speak within the 15-minute time period allotted for total public participation on each topic, the public comment portion will be closed. Council committee members will then continue their deliberations. There may be additional questions directed to the administration during this time. When the discussion on the topic concludes, the chair will indicate whether legislation will be introduced at the next regular session of council and move on to the next item on the agenda or adjourn the committee if their work is complete. The next committee chair will then call their committee to order, proceeding in the same manner as before. Once all committees have adjourned, City Council will conclude for the evening.
Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, December 8th, 2025 at 7:02 p.m. And we have a single committee meeting tonight, and then we will move into a special session to read ordinances. I'm going to ask that everybody simply stay at the dais. Our only committee meeting this evening is Finance and Personnel, which is chaired by Member Reisner, joined by Member Wood, who will be here briefly, Member Clodfelter, and Member McCary.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you said, Finance and Personnel Committee has only one topic. It's an appropriation from the 2025 appropriation budget. It's for $8,076 to the Transportation Fund for a fourth quarter payment to HAPCAP. I don't have any further information on this other than it'll go into Fund 214, Transaction Code 300. So ask the administration if there's any more to...
Just that this is our fourth quarter payment to HAPCAP.
Okay.
For the buses?
For transportation. We do this every year. 4 times a year, as a matter of fact.
Makes sense. Members of the public, you have any comments about paying a bill to HAPCAP? Since our non-committee members are members of the public, do they have anything to say about this? Members of the committee itself? Well, then, if that's the case, I would like to make a motion for this committee that we move it out of committee and put it as a first reading for the agenda later this evening.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I don't think we need to do a roll call, so I believe it's passed. So, Mr. President, that concludes Finance and Personnel.
Thank you, Member Reisner. We will now move on to our regular meeting. Our first order of business is to establish quorum. 6 of 7, and I think in just a few minutes we'll have 7 of 7 council members present, and so thus we do have quorum. And then the next item of business is ordinances for third reading. Ordinance 121-25 is an ordinance authorizing 2026 staffing levels, repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith, and declaring an emergency, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt 121-25.
Seconded.
This ordinance has been read twice. It's been discussed in committee, I think rather thoroughly. There had been some amendments in the early versions, and we discussed those. It's one of these type of ordinances that we have to do every year in order to get things set up for 2026. So I urge you to pass it.
Thank you, Member Eisner. We have a motion and a second for approval. Are there any comments or questions? Member Spianis.
Sorry. Well, again, because we're going to be changing dramatically our budget due to unforeseen circumstances, it seems really impossible for me to believe that we would not make any staffing changes in preparation for those changes. So I'd like to hear from the mayor about how are you going to do it?
We have money in the budget. There's money in the budget. There has been money in the budget. So we have enough money to move things around and to pay the refund that said entity is entitled to. And therefore, at this point in time, we do have plans. I have a plan for what staffing may look like if we have to get to that point at some point next year. But at this point, this isn't something where I'm going to start changing the staffing ordinance because of the $750,000 refund out of the auditor's office. We have money in the bank. So there's no reason for me to sit there and start taking a document that's a living document anyway, that can be adjusted throughout the year and has been adjusted almost annually to where we realize, wow, we don't necessarily need this position, or we're changing positions, or we are adding positions. So at this point in the game, the plan is set. We know what we're going to do, and there is money in place to be able to cover our expenditures going into 2026.
Well, I'd like to point out that it's not just the $750,000, it's also the $350,000 that you are cutting from the budget because we didn't pass the levy. So that's $1,100,000, not just the $750,000. And again, that's a huge hit on the city. So it does make me really uncomfortable about not knowing what's going to be cut to make that budget possible.
These are administrative decisions when we get into 2026. Again, I can't stress enough, after having a long, lengthy conversation with the auditor this morning, we have money in the budget.
Well, I'm sorry, but my concern is that, yes, they're administrative decisions, but it is the legislative branch that makes decisions about approving budgets and staffing levels. So that's pretty vague to say basically trust us, because I'll figure it out somehow.
It's not that I figured it out somehow. We know what we're going to do.
Great, tell us.
Well, I'm not changing the staffing ordinance, and I'm not changing the current staffing.
Okay,
Plain and simple. We have the money in the budget, and we're going to move forward with it.
all right, thank you.
Plain and simple.
Any other council members? Anything to add, administration?
No.
Members of the public, would you like to comment on the staffing ordinance? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of adopting ordinance 121-25 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 129-25 is an ordinance repealing Ordinance 91-23, the Uptown Improvements Project, number 329, introduced by Councilmember Spianis.
Yes, thank you. So this is pretty simple. There was a project that was bid 4 times and got no responses. It was apparently perceived to be too complicated a project when there were other opportunities for contractors. So just go ahead and say, nope, we're not going to do this. So I move that we pass this. It's, again, the third reading. We've discussed this. It's not complicated. Just can't do it. So I move that we pass this.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Are there any comments or questions? Member Smythe.
Just a question I'd like to direct to the mayor here. The second whereas, sir, says, whereas ODOT pulled $1 million small cities funds due to timing. Do you think this in any way, shape, or form could affect our success in possibly securing other grants? Or are they cognizant of the fact that we went through the bidding process and we just failed? Or we
great
didn't fail,
question.
but the bidding process failed?
Yeah, no, great question, and you're spot on. If it were a situation to where the city was basically held responsible for not delivering on a project, or just completely botched, putting out RFPs, so to accept bids for said project, then yeah, any municipality would be in potential jeopardy when it came to future funding. ODOT has assured us that they recognize that we have done everything that we need to within our power, and we just were not receiving bids from individuals on this project. Somewhat because of the complexity of the project, and other reasons that we were hearing from some contractors that may have been interested but did not proceed to go ahead and bid on this project. So we feel very good, at keeping them abreast. I'm talking about, Ohio Department of Transportation, keeping them abreast of everything that we were doing, and they recognize that. So no, thank goodness.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're right, though. You're spot on with what can happen, but we're in good shape.
Any other council members? Anything to add, Mayor, to repealing Project 329?
No, other than, again, it's just unfortunate that we received 0 bids on this particular project.
Agreed. Audience members, anything to comment on the repeal of Project 329? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving ordinance 129-25 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion passes and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 130-25 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 35-25, authorizing engineering and construction of the Athens Streetscape Beautification, Project Number 383, introduced by Councilmember Spianis.
Yes, thank you again. This is the third reading. It's been discussed a lot, and because we didn't get the other project to work, this is sort of replacing that. I think that's a good way of explaining it, unless the mayor can say otherwise. So I think it's important that we try to do some more streetscape beautification in our city. There's a lot we can do, and this is an opportunity to make it better. And I'm excited to ask that we pass this ordinance and do some great street rehabilitation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions? City council members? Mayor, anything to add?
Just as a reminder to council, the $6.5 million, the grant that we received is through the governor's Appalachian Community Grant Fund. So there is a significant portion of this project coming from the state, which is basically their ARPA dollars that they are still wanting to expense. There is a time frame in which we have to have that money not only allocated but spent down, and it's near the end of 2026. So we've got a real tight runway to get this project done as well. But this is ACGP.
Thank you. Audience members, any comments on project number 383? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 131-25 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to redesignate Hocking Athens Perry Community Action, HAPCAP, to administer the Athens Public Transit Bus System, introduced by Councilmember Spianis.
Thank you. So I got a text from Ben Ziff, who you know is responsible for a lot of this work, and a former council member, and he said, do I need to be there to make sure that you guys pass this? And I said, I don't think there's going to be a lot of fight over this. I think we just authorized $8,000 some for HAPCAP, and so this is just an agreement as we've been doing, but this is an opportunity for HAPCAP to basically take over and lessen the responsibility of Athens to do the work. So there's an MOU and an agreement for them to, as it says, procurement required to operate and administer the system. So I think we should pass this. Thank you very much.
Is that a motion, Member Spanos?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 131-25. Any comments or questions, Member Swank?
In your conversation with Ben, I guess I could say, Ben, you got 5 minutes to get here because we're going to drag this out, but I wouldn't say that. In your conversations with Ben, did he give you any indication of starting again, Saturday and Sunday bus service?
You know, in my conversations with everybody who's involved with this, they just don't have the money. I mean, I know that's something that people really want, and I would love to see that happen. I'd love to see more funding, but right now that's just not going to happen, unless the mayor heard otherwise, but that's my understanding.
I've been applying pressure as well, Councilmember Swank. And a lot of that pressure I'm hearing from a lot of our international graduate students
Oh, yeah.
that are going to Ohio University and really wanting to see weekend service, and in particular on Sundays, which in a lot of cases hasn't happened, but Saturday service for sure. So I'm still continuing to make those requests of our transit system.
Do we have any idea what it would cost to add Saturday or what it would cost to add Sunday?
A couple of years ago, Ben Ziff told me that it would cost at least $500,000 because it's about $10,000 per Saturday, and they were going to run 50 Saturdays a year. I don't remember which ones they were taking off. So between $500,000 and $520,000 a couple of years ago.
For a whole year?
For a whole year.
Okay.
It would probably cost more now, but I've not heard a more recent estimate.
Thanks.
Any other council members like to comment on this? Member McCary.
Sure, yeah, while we're on this subject and we know how important transportation is for our community, we have discussed that sometimes we're able to expand services with the help of grants. I think this year was the first that we, in recent memory, were able to provide free passes to folks, and as I recall, that's going to be the same for next year. But are there other means that the city's explored in the past, perhaps levies or even citizen-funded initiatives to expand our transportation with HAPCAP? And that's a question for the mayor for kind of historical kind of context.
Yeah, I don't recall that we've ever used a levy, that tool, to increase funding for Athens public transit system. It's interesting to allow for the passes that, like the student body to Ohio University, it is to where it's subsidized by the university to help offset that cost at the fare box. But the fare box, at the end of the day, really doesn't generate all that much money. A lot of their money comes from 5310, 5311, which are the two DOT funding source, or not funding sources, but allocations that you see out there. 5310 is rural transit or transit, and then 5311 is the on-demand system. There just isn't as much money being allocated to transit, let alone rural transit, which is where we qualify. We do put 8% towards transportation in the city of Athens within our budget mix, and we've adjusted that several times, but have really kind of held that one steady moving forward, well, in the past and up to the present. Certainly that's something that can be re-explored in the future, pending, solving our own revenue issues that we have in the city of Athens. But at this point, to change the percentage mix at this point in the game, it's not in the cards, unfortunately.
Thank you.
I wish I could, but I can't.
Member Wood, we are considering ordinance 131-25, which authorizes the mayor to designate HAPCAP to administer the Athens public transit bus system, and we are taking right now questions from council members on this ordinance, comments or questions. And then we go back to the mayor. Anything to add, Mayor?
No.
Now to the public, please. Thank you, Mr. Delich.
Thanks. Rob Delich, 124 Morris Avenue here in the city. Just to add a little more information to help answer Member McCary's question, is one of the main ways transit systems in Ohio are funded is through sales tax. So it is possible for the county to institute, it would be a referendum, so it'd be voter approved referendum for a quarter point or up to a half a point, I believe, dedicated to transit, which would be a large sum of money for HAPCAP to fund the system. A quarter point would be a huge revenue increase. And they could do the weekend service we're talking about. They probably could add a bus line to Gloucester, which has been talked about. So at the county level is probably where the funding really needs to be worked on. The commissioners tried to pass a quarter point increase for themselves for their budget, just general revenue, and it failed. I don't think they made a very good case, or any case really, and that's one of the reasons it failed. That was probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But the other possibility would be for the commissioners to agree to a referendum for a quarter point or half point for transit. And that would be the real way to fix the budget problems with our local transit. So that's the main way. Most other cities in Ohio are using that resource to fund transit as a big revenue source of transit. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delich. Any other audience members like to comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting 131-25 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 133-25 is an ordinance amending Title VII Traffic Code, Sections 7.01.02, 7.01.13, 7.01.17, 7.03.07, 7.03.07.1, 7.03.25, 7.04.03, and 7.04.44, and repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
Thank you. That's a lot of numbers.
A lot of numbers.
The next three ordinances are all very similar in that they are simply bringing Athens City Code in line with the ORC. The first one, 133-25, deals with our traffic code. Mr. President, I would move that council pass 133-25.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Are there any comments or questions from council members? Mayor, anything to add?
No.
Audience members? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 134-25 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title IX, General Regulations, Chapter 9.06, Intoxicating Liquors, Narcotics, Section 9.06.99, Penalties, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
134-25, like the previous ordinance, simply brings our code and general regulations, intoxicating liquors, narcotics, and penalties in line with the state code, the ORC. Mr. President, I would move the council pass 134-25.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second to pass 134-25. Any comments or questions on this ordinance? Mayor, anything to add? No. Audience members? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 135-25 is an ordinance amending Title 13, General Offenses, Sections 13.05.01 and 13.05.03, and repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
And finally, 135-25 brings our general offenses sections of our code in compliance in alignment with the ORC. Mr. President, I would move the council pass 135-25 this evening.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on this ordinance? Mayor, anything to add? Audience members? Seeing none, all those in favor of adoption signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 136-25 is an ordinance to repeal Athens City Code Title 15 taxes, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt 136-25.
Second.
As in the previous three, this ordinance also brings the city code up to ORC. Those tax laws that were covered under Title 15 have been repealed, and the new laws have been inserted into our Title 17. So consequently, Title 15 is obsolete and needs to be repealed.
Thank you, Member Reisner. We have a motion and a second for approval. Any comments or questions from council members? Mayor, anything to add? Members of the public? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 137-25 is an ordinance to provide for an increase in the general city income tax of 0.20%, 0.20%, per annum beginning January 1, 2027, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt 137-25.
Seconded.
This is controversial, sure. It's been discussed in committee. It's been read twice. The reasons being that the city's expenditures are beginning to exceed its income. Increasing taxes is up to the public, and all what this ordinance will do is give the public a chance to make a decision whether or not they want the tax or not. This places it upon the ballot. That's all. So I urge you to pass it.
Thank you, Member Reisner. We have a motion and a second for approval. Any comments or questions from city council members? Member Swank.
I'd simply like to reiterate what Member Reisner said for the benefit of the press and those watching at home. This is a vote by the council members, neither for or against this. The campaigning will take place at a later date. This simply places it on the ballot and gives the citizens of Athens an opportunity to say yay or nay on the income tax. I don't want to read in the paper tomorrow that Athens City Council passed an income tax. We did not. Assuming we vote for this, we're just putting it on the ballot and giving the citizens the opportunity to have a choice.
Thank you for that explanation. Any other comments or questions from council members? Mayor, anything to add?
Just well put, Councilmember Swag.
Audience members? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting ordinance 137-25 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. We now move on to ordinances for second reading. I will read the title and then see if there's any comments. Ordinance 120-25 is an ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Athens, Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2026, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Member Swank?
In looking at this, I've come across a few discrepancies I think we need to address just so that we have a clean bill. When this was read for the first time on 11/3, November the 3rd, there were 3 lines on here that are different than what are on the document in front of us today. The first is the auditor's line on the first reading was $350,000. And we all know last week we voted to amend that. So that one has been taken care of. The second discrepancy it has to do with line 293, Law Enforcement Trust. On the original document on 11/3, the amount was $12,250. On the document in front of us today, that figure has dropped to $7,700. So there's a difference there. I went back and watched the videos. There was never a motion or a second to amend that. So I think it would be appropriate that we probably have to amend that this evening. The third discrepancy, on the first reading, the last line, unclaimed funds, 903, there was nothing after that. In the document before us tonight, there is a line 905, ACGP, and I know that stands for something legitimate, but the amount is $6,500,000. And again, looking at the videos and looking at the minutes that Clerk Walker provides us, there was no motion or second to amend that. So if I'm correct in what I'm reading here, Mr. President, I think I would like to make a motion that we amend this document to reflect the amounts that we see on the packet that we received today.
Thank you.
And I'm sure there's an explanation for it, but we can't really approve a document that's not totally accurate or hasn't followed the process.
Right, we don't have our law director with us today. I will turn to the clerk of council to see if she wants to chime in. It is possible to amend the budget ordinance clerically. Not that it's a clerical error, but it's a clerical amendment that doesn't require council approval. I am okay with amending this document, knowing that it'll go back to first reading, and we'll have to suspend the rules next week to pass this. The ACGP is the community grant program, so that's the 6.5 million that I believe is going for the project.
Yeah, the governor's Appalachian Communities Grant.
Right.
Yeah, if we can do it clerically and it's perfectly legitimate and legal, that's fine with me. I just wanted to point out that from first
Yes.
reading to today, we have, 6.5 million is not pocket change.
Right. The previous 350,000 to 1.1 million, I thought should be discussed at council, and so we didn't use the clerical procedure for that change. The 293 you mentioned, the 12,250 to 7,700 could be considered clerical, especially since it's a reduction.
Yep.
But you make a good point about the ACGP. Mayor, did you want to chime in there?
No, I just, because I want to look into that as well. Can you repeat what you said, Councilmember Swank, about that one in particular, the unclaimed funds?
Yeah, on September, on November the 3rd, first reading, we have the general fund stuff and then all the other funds, and they're listed in numerical order. The last one listed was unclaimed funds 903. There was no 905. On the document we have in front of us today, the last item is 905, the ACGP. Okay. And, it's perfectly legit. That's a lot of money to be approving without having some accountability for it. And if we can do it in a clerical manner and the president is comfortable with that and the clerk, I can withdraw that motion to amend.
Clerk, do you have an opinion on the matter?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
And a second reason is if by chance next Monday, for some reason, we have 8 inches of snow and only 5 of us can get here, we wouldn't have enough to suspend the rules.
Member Thomas.
Just as a sort of explanation on that, I was talking to the auditor's office just with random questions. And after the meeting, she had commented that the change, like the 750,000 for her office and whatnot, don't actually have to be amended. It's just that she wants to have them discussed and noted, so we don't have to actually amend any of it because it's a living document and it's going to change constantly. So yeah, the clerical error would make sense, but we don't even have to worry about going back and amending or suspending to do that. It's her take.
Yeah, and we amended the document last week for the 750,000, so yeah.
Yeah, and she said we really didn't even need to do that. She just wanted to make sure everybody was aware.
Great, thank you. All right, so withdraw that motion.
Okay, so we're still at second reading for ordinance 120-25. Any further comments or questions? Member Swank?
Yeah, that was the minor question. The bigger question is this. I've been involved in budgetary concerns in 3 different entities in my professional career. And all we have in front of us today, and all we've had in front of us since the last of October, are the expenditures, the appropriations. Where are the projected revenue figures? I've never heard of passing a budget when you only have expenditures and we don't have projected revenue. So the auditor's not here today, we can't ask her, but can we get those before we get this thing to third reading?
Sure we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's provided those in the past. I will get those projected numbers for you.
reports all the time.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great.
Any other comments or questions from council members? Yes, Member Spellman.
And this is If I remember correctly, a month or so ago, the treasurer told us that we had about $180,000 in the opioid fund, and if I'm reading this correctly, it's down to 50. So what happened to that? Am I missing something? I don't know where that money went.
I don't know where it went either. I don't know that it has been expensed. I'll check on that as well. We've certainly, the only thing we've used out of that funding was recently, when I say recently, in the past couple months anyway, using, I think it was $8,000 of what was in there for AEDs, so that we had them in recreational spaces, which is an appropriate expense to use when you have people in parks doing who knows what, and may find themselves in a situation where they need to have their heart started again.
Well, because I've been speaking to those folks in the community who are the experts on drug treatment and whatever, and they're eager to work with you on coming up with some priorities, and so I'm hoping that original amount is still there somewhere.
Yeah, I'll find out what the discrepancy is on that.
Okay.
I too have been talking to a lot of opiate experts,
I know.
and will continue to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Spillane. And yes, Member Thomas.
Just looking at the October closing report, there's $101,000 in the fund. So the budget for next year looks like it's just budgeting what will come in, or what will, not what will come in, what we'll be spending out of that anticipated in supplies. But yeah, we have 101,000 as of the end of October in that fund.
That's a lot different than the original.
180? We don't have November's yet, but that is in our finance report from October at least. I mean, we can look back at all the months though, but.
Thank you, Member Thomas. Mayor, if we could get some more information on that, that would be great. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, ordinance 120-25 has been read for the second time. Ordinance 139-25 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 23, zoning, Chapter 23.04, permitted uses, to allow temporary shelters as a conditionally permitted use in R3 and B3 zones. Introduced by Councilmember Swank. Ordinance, this is the time, if anyone wishes to speak to this ordinance, now is the time.
Jack Stoffer, Elmwood. I'm here because I love Athens. I'm here because I am pleading with you to make the most responsible decision for the most of the people that you represent. Isn't that what democracy is all about? I'm one voice with the balls to speak out and take the hateful blowback I received when addressing 2504 and the disrespect I received from this dais last Monday night. Most people don't want to go through this kind of treatment. I have been networking with many folks, the regular folks who work every day, also contractors, doctors, merchants, bar owners, lawyers, a retired judge, professors, school teachers, and strong Christians. This decision is not about me. It's not about you. It's about the future of our quality of life in our sweet little town. Let's face it, most people are not paying attention and are unaware of this issue, but they damn sure will be if homeless encampments start popping up around town. Huts, tents, porta-johns, and all that comes along with this, litter, trash, and people begging on our streets. In areas where these appear, do some research. Picture this, parents instructing their children not to walk down certain streets because Parents are responsible and don't want their children exposed or coming in contact with the unfortunate souls that will be hanging around these areas. You can call this fear-mongering or NIMBY, but you will make this happen if you pass this. If you are truly concerned about these unfortunate souls, then you should concentrate on the smarter yet harder approach and look for real help, for real shelter from state or federal grants. Look to HAPCAP, Habitat for Humanity, churches, civic groups, fraternal organizations, wealthy private citizens. In any event, we can't solve America or Ohio's homeless problems. Again, please err on the side of caution. Look out for our area and concentrate on our town, but let's not let our town be the most welcoming to homeless in Ohio, or they will come and come in numbers. People take the path of least resistance. I know you folks all have education. I know you're smart. That's all fine. This is about common sense. I would like a common sense decision. Let the Sunset Motel play out and see how things go without jumping to conclusions and subjecting Athens to a situation that we don't know that we need to face. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stoffer.
Rob Delich, I live on Morris Avenue here in the city. I'd just like to say a couple things. One is that the poor, the homeless are already here. There are already encampments in the city. And many cases, they're in plain sight. And if we provide a place and a way to help support folks, they can, one, will reduce crime, as we've talked about. I mean, we talked about these issues so many times, just repeating the same things over and over, it seems, but I'll say a couple things at least. But it will reduce crime. It will reduce the issues that Mr. Stoffer talked about if we were to provide shelter for folks that need it. It reduces the issues that he's concerned about. Another thing to point out is, and I've said this before, is that the Board of Zoning Appeals is involved in the equation here. So it's not just the service safety director making a decision based on a couple of criteria, but the Board of Zoning Appeals looks at the full spectrum of possibilities and concerns and listens to the public, has a public hearing, and deliberates in a legal proceeding to make sure we make a good decision for the community. So it's a careful process that we go through, and it's a legal process that the state dictates. And so I feel that we have already good rails on this ordinance. It would have been nice to have made an amendment to maybe added a little bit of language in there, but I don't even think it's really needed because we have the safeguards in place with the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I think that's all I had to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Delich.
Hello. Ginger Schmallenberg, Shade, Ohio. I am here to say that I am in support of this change, this ordinance. And one really big reason, is because I have been listening to the community for several months, and many individuals that are business owners, landowners, have stated in this room that they would be more readily, they could get behind it and support it if it were more on the outskirts of town, such as Columbus Road, Hope Drive. And that really got me thinking about such things. And if we do not pass this, then that would not be a possibility to take it from uptown to another place. And this is something that, I really care about our town as well, and the individuals we serve. And obviously, the current site in town, that's just meant to be a pilot. That's never meant to be big or anything like that. But I am listening to the community, and they would rather see it other places. Those other places will be B3 and R3. So just please take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President. If somebody else speaking.
Mr. Swank, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, not a question. I was digging through my papers, as you saw, because I thought I left this at home, and that's why I didn't speak earlier.
I think we have another community member.
Yes, sorry.
Oh.
Just a little bit on the late side.
Okay.
David Vandendorp, May Avenue. I just wanted to say that the way I think one addresses an issue like this in a city is through ordinance, and I support the ordinance.
Thank you. Anyone else from the community like to speak to this ordinance? Mr. Swank, did you have something you wanted to
Yeah,
provide?
I'm sorry, I was digging through the papers. I thought I left this at home, but I had it in this pile of budget stuff. Council members received an email late this afternoon. Some may have had a chance to read it, some may not have had a chance to read it, and I'm not going to read it. We don't generally do that. But this email I thought was particularly interesting, and I will share a paragraph. This is from Mark Weinberg, who is the founding dean of the Voinovich School. I would contend the preeminent public policy school in the state of Ohio. Been in operation, since 2014. But this is essentially what he said. The R3 and B3 proposal was a bit of a surprise given all the recent attention devoted to the Gathering Place project and the renovation of the Sunset Motel. My surprise was that the live discussion seemed to focus on the limited options, and because I and other residents have heard from multiple people who live in the Near East Side that they do not support this broad initiative at this time. Thank you for your attention to this note, and thank you for the hard work and services of Athens. I hope that you will delay any action on this proposal until we see how the Gathering Place and Sunset Motel projects play out. We've heard this from multiple people. And I think at this point in time, considering we did not pass the amendment last week that put the guardrails on this, we have a ordinance at second reading that is solely and sorely lacking some of the guardrails that people talked about. I think it's very important that we take a look at how this all started. And Ryan, if you'd be so kind, I want to take everybody back to May and the Planning Commission meeting to see how this all started, really as an afterthought.
Yeah. In 2 weeks, that should become a case and be a part of a vote here at the commission. The second communication item is to changes to Title 23 to allow temporary housing shelters in a B3 zone as a permitted auxiliary or accessory use. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. These are similar, so we have a issue.
Okay,
that
Ryan, I don't
to
think this is
discuss
going to
that's
work.
Pretty time sensitive. We also wanted to look at.
But essentially what we're seeing is that following the discussion of the Gathering Place, which was, well, hang on a second, we'll see what happens here.
We could read lips. Just an idea.
Technical difficulties.
The code changes to allow these.
Okay, can we go back to where you started, Ryan?
As things evolve.
So then we're going to so we'll conclude that first communication, and in 2 weeks that should become a case and be a part of a vote here at the commission. The second communication item is to changes to Title 23 to allow temporary housing shelters in a B3 zone as a permitted auxiliary or accessory use.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. These are similar, so we have an issue that we wanted to discuss that was pretty time sensitive. We also wanted to look at being able to make the code changes to allow these types of uses as things evolve. 20 years ago, nobody would have thought about the concept of a temporary housing shelter. We want to keep evolving the zoning code to keep up with what's going on today. So this would actually help us, and rather than just calling it a concept of huts. There may be different types, as I said earlier. So I'm calling this a temporary housing shelter. We are suggesting, staff is suggesting that it be first permitted at the B3 zone as a permitted accessory use. And we've made the code changes, as you see, to make those changes. What I did note, what I would note is that we did ask that these facilities, any of the facilities that we would do in the future, would have one sink and one toilet available within 200 feet of every 3 units, or every 3 beds, however you want to look at it. And that we would want to get prior approval from the service safety, I've got this backwards, service safety director before asking for a use, that would, a use permit from our office.
Any
Thank you. Mr. Swank, this has been unusual. We're going back to deliberation in May. We've had lots of discussions about this issue since May. Can you tell us how long you want to watch this and what your point is to bring this forward?
It takes about 7 minutes.
And what is your point for bringing this forward now?
The video will make that point. This is second reading. We have discussion.
We have discussion. We don't play unlimited timed videos.
I have 10 minutes, sir, by our rules.
Okay, let's continue.
Thank you.
questions or comments here from the board?
I think we have to provide some clarification to the wider public. You know, as we grappled with the particular issues, we wanted to bring these as separate communications for the purposes of allowing the initiatives that we're gathering places to move forward on one track. And meanwhile, talking citywide on another track. As far as how do we deal with the future. And the reason for that is we didn't want to have the situation very specific to the gathering place and that location get bogged down by perhaps opposition to a citywide mechanism for approving these. So that was our strategy here. That's why these are two separate communications. One of the things I think we need to talk about as a commission is I think it's the right path to do an accessory use, so it's basically an accessory structure, and then also to have the extra requirements related to sanitation facilities, because those are our biggest concerns with this. But I think we need to have a discussion on the commission about is B3 the right zone. This is the only place they're allowed. Should B2 be included? Maybe not B2D, but B2. Should R3 be included? Right now, there's no residential use allowed in M zones, right? So when we talk about up zoning and down zoning, the only zone in the city where these would be allowed would be B3. And is that the correct amount, or should it be somewhere else? Because typically, you could do anything in a B3 zone, you could do it in M zone also, except residential. And so it would be permitted. So is this the right level of restriction, I guess, for this? And I think it's worth this discussion.
So that would help us. We should probably look at a blown-up version of that map. Or actually go over and take a look at for B3, the zoning maps that are available. I have a question that relates back to what the proposed language is actually the sentence before us. So this is all under B3, and it's saying here are permitted accessory uses. And that one, I'm just confused. I just need to clarify it. It says for B1, accessory uses and structures as permitted and regulated in the B1 zone and such other accessory uses and structures not otherwise prohibited. Customarily, accessory incidental to any of the foregoing permitted B2 uses. I don't understand that. I'm sorry. I've read it 3 times.
I didn't look at changing that. That's what as this accessory use. I just simply added the B.
Right, I know, but I'm saying what we're looking at. Okay, thank you. I'm glad it's not just me.
Yes, Mayor.
I know with the cost of huts, we just had that conversation. Is there, are we going to include somewhere in the definition section defining temporary housing and what that looks like? And the reason I'm asking is, I'm a realist, I fully recognize, and I hope most of you who are here today recognize this as well, is if you look in any of our large parking lot areas here in the city of Athens, there are people living in their cars. And so I need to be really clear as to what constitutes temporary housing. I would contend, although it's fact, it's happening, that unfortunately cars are being used for temporary housing. We're not going to go there, but I am going to mention that I've been doing my own homework and recognizing that there are municipalities that have set aside parking lots that have amenities in those parking lots as a safe parking space for someone who is living out of their car. I'll share with you, the most recent that I came across was in a place that was kind of mind-boggling to me, and it should be. It's Vail, Colorado. Vail, Colorado has set aside parking lot in an area that has extremely high rents, extremely high base prices for a home, which a lot of people can't even touch it. But there's service providers that still have to work and provide the amenities and the services in those whether it's the ski resort, it's the village, it's ski shops, it's whatever. And we're no different. Athens is no different from that. And so, again, I'll get off my soapbox. But I think the point is we need to be really clear with what we're defining as the temporary housing. But I think there's a bigger conversation to be had in terms of what people are literally being forced to have to live out of. And don't even get me started on the mental crisis that's happening across this nation when it comes to mental wellness, which they go hand in hand. I'm not saying one leads to the other, but saying that we live in a really complex point in time. And housing is kind of ground zero.
Mr. Chair, a question for David. Today, if I owned a camper and I wanted to live in it, what zone could I do that in the city, if anywhere?
So currently you can do that in a residential zone. It's a temporary housing while you're building a residential structure.
And that's any residential zone?
Yeah, in a residential zone, you're allowed to temporarily use a camper to live in. I think there's a time limit on it, it might be a year or something. And then it goes to a B3 zone. It's the first place that camping or camper is an allowed use.
Okay.
It is a B3 zone.
And so that's distinct from this temporary shelter because camper is kind of like an all-inclusive abode because it's got a restroom facility in it and it's mobile, right, with the waste tank and that sort of thing. Okay. And so we're really talking about something different than a camper here. We're talking about something that doesn't have a restroom facility, allowing it to be in proximity to a place that does as an accessory structure in the B3 zone, but only B3.
It was specifically called out in the section that it's a housing structure that doesn't have a restroom or kitchen. So that's the way we define this temporary housing shelter.
What do you think the risk could be, or if there are risks to this? Not to consequences. I mean, certainly the positive use of dealing with non-house population and temporary nature is a problem we're trying to solve. What's the risk that we could run into?
You could have folks that are trying to access and use a like a storage unit. We see that sometimes those are really not adequate uses, but however that structure is permanently fixed, so that's not allowed. We've got the code set up. We also see the shipping containers. Again, those are not that a lot of work. Those are not very effective shelters. That would not be allowed here as well. So we're trying to address, trying to get a definition, a little clearer definition of what we would allow and what we wouldn't. So campers not included in this. Living in a
This evolved from the city planner and the code director here. Some of the things they talked about, there was a gathering place was time sensitive, and I think we're all in agreement that was a request. There was no request for the R3, B3, or the B3 in its original thing. This just kind of evolved as an add-on. It originally started out as permitted accessory uses, and only through the service safety director as an accessory use. And yes, you are right, this changed and evolved over time. But we've heard from citizens, we've heard from many citizens, and I honestly believe if you were to put this on the ballot, it would fail. Because as Mr. Spezio said several weeks ago, people are afraid to come in front of this body. Mr. Stauffer said it tonight. Because your opinion is valuable as long as it agrees with those who are in favor. I will say again, and Mr. Smith probably said this best, to do this on a zoning basis as opposed to a one-off request basis as the gathering place did is not the way to handle this. And I would respectfully request that members of council consider Mr. Weinberg's email and have further discussion on this in the new year to see after the gathering place is rolled out in full, and also the Sunset Motel. Thank you.
I would like to remind council that council rules stipulate that members of council may speak on a topic for 10 minutes. We have nothing in our council rules that mentions playing videos. And I would encourage council under the leadership of President-elect McCary and your orientation to discuss how you want to move forward next year. Will we be vetting what types of videos that will be shown during council chambers? Will we be discussing the length of those videos? How will we get approval for those? There's lots of questions that have come up tonight. This is the first time in my 8 years on council that we have allowed this. I have watched the May myself several times, and so this is not new information to me. Are there any other comments or questions from council members on this ordinance? Member Thomas.
Where to start? So I think everything that is in this addresses all of the things that came out of that meeting clearly, with all of the structure, all of the requirements, all of the stopgaps and the guardrails. This is just something that has an opportunity if it makes sense. I think that Mr. Delash made all the points he's made many times as we've been discussing this sort of since May, June 4th for this one specifically. We've talked about it. We have lots of guardrails. We don't have additional amendments because Member Swank voted against them last week, so it's interesting that he brought those up tonight. And I did read Mr. Weinberg's email and responded to him already this afternoon and pointed out that all of this background, that we've been discussing this since May and early June, and that it has been delayed and dragged out until November. So why he hasn't heard about it is because there's just a lot going on everywhere, I would guess. But that we did have a public hearing about it at the beginning of November and discussed it in committee, and then brought it back and discussed it in committee, and we are now into readings. It shouldn't take 6 to 7 months to go through some of these processes, and it is very intentional. I also pointed out to him that at no point during any of this was the gathering place stated to be, or Sunset, which has nothing to do with the city of Athens or city council, were test sites or feasibility programs for the city or for zoning. They're test sites and feasibility for the gathering place facility and their programs. One does not impact the other, and it grew out of the recommendation or the request of the gathering place because it seems like something that the Planning Commission said makes good sense, is something we could consider and have available, and is not a required use, is not a guaranteed use, you know, and has so many things in there where the public can weigh in on each individual case. And a process that has happened, you know, every month in the city for quite a while now at BZA meetings. So I think that there's been some misinformation spread to Mr. Weinberg, but we've discussed this a lot, and it just needs to continue through as it should have months ago.
Member Clodfelter.
And I guess just in response to another comment that Member Swank said, in terms of the people who've spoken before council, who've actually come and attended and spoken here, I think far more of them have been in favor than not. And of the people I've talked to, more people have been in favor than not.
Any other council members like to speak to this issue? Member McCary.
A question to Member Thomas. I appreciated the amendments that you thoughtfully made in response to public questions and recommendations, and was curious if you intended to reintroduce those for council's consideration.
Not at this point. I think we just go through this as it is, and if we look in the future, and it seems like maybe in a few months, if somebody does request it and we need to address it, then we could look at it then, but I mean, we voted on that, so it's good.
Member Swank, you've had your 10 minutes on this. What is it that you'd like to add?
I guess I'm having a difficult time coming to grasp with what is the motivation of some of my fellow council members to want to pass this when we don't have a request for it. I understand why we passed the ordinance for the gathering place. Someone came to us with a very specific plan, a well-thought-out plan, and this council passed it. But we have no one lined up at the door right now. We have, I guess, put it in supply and demand terms, we have no demand, yet we want to provide the supply. And I just can't get my head around what the reasoning is behind wanting to pass this.
Thank you, Mr. Swank. Any other comments or questions? Member Gladfelder?
It seems to me that it's smart to set up guardrails and requirements before we get any requests, and just have things in place so that if in the future somebody does want to host temporary shelters, there will already be guidelines and requirements they will be able to see and understand as they consider whether or not to do it. And that's just a good move by a city to be in front of something like this.
Member Thomas?
Exactly what Member Clodfelder just said. And I would also add that it avoids the dilemma that we just had where the gathering place first came forward 8 months ago. And going through the BZA, that would not take 8 months. It avoids, we are working ahead and being ahead of the problem and trying to address things in a structured manner.
This is a very important ordinance, and we're a little bit off of procedure this evening, but I'm going to allow it due to the importance of this ordinance. Mr. Stauffer, if you'd like to come back to the podium.
Most of the people that spoke in the previous meetings were not addressing R3 and B3. The folks that the woman spoke to a little bit ago, a few moments ago, those people were speaking specifically about Congress Street. There was very little or maybe no references, maybe you could run the tape, about R3 and B3. And that video we just saw was as clear as mud. This seems to be unprepared, unprofessional, unneeded, and trying to be rushed through for reasons that I don't understand. I've talked to many, many, many people, and they don't have the guts because they don't want to be berated by the people that are in the audience during the previous Congress Street stuff. But they saw how that goes. That's the reason I'm behind a whole bunch of people, and without listing names, and I won't list names because I was sworn to secrecy because people didn't want to be berated in public. And you can berate me, I don't care. I'm here for the citizens of Athens, Ohio, and they want protection, and there's no need for this at this point in time. Let your Sunset Project see how it goes. If you invite more people to town, you're going to have more people come to town.
Mr. Stauffer, thank you. If you have new information to share with us, we'd appreciate hearing that, but we've heard this before. You've testified to this already tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any additional comments or questions on this ordinance, which is at second reading? And I'll just turn to the mayor or anyone else to see if, before we move on. Thank you. Ordinance 140-25 is an ordinance granting a special right-of-way use permit at 43 South Court Street to add a balcony to an existing building, introduced by Councilmember Swain.
Yes, Mr. President, at the last meeting, the mayor had a question about a separation on the balcony. I misspoke last week. The two-bedroom apartments will run parallel to Court Street, so that the window on the left and the window on the right will be two bedrooms in the same apartment. Therefore, there won't be a divider on the balcony. That was the only thing I had to add. Talked to Mr. Schultz on Friday, the architect.
Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you, Councilmember Swain. That is interesting to hear, interesting to hear. But one of the things that I did notice, and I failed to reach out to the fire chief about this, and maybe things have changed, but I do recall when we went through the process, most notably in 2014, I believe it was, with the former greenery, is that the fire chief would look to see how many on said balconies, if they were to exist, if they were created, what was the square footage, and therefore what is the capacity for that deck, or whatever we're calling it, the balcony. So again, things may have changed, but knowing Chief Reimer, they probably haven't when it comes to square footage and capacity and so on and so forth. So I'm just, not to change anything, I am going to mention that to him to see if there will be with said balcony, if it's built, because it currently doesn't exist, whether there'll be a capacity limit on that deck, because that can be concerning, to see an overcrowded balcony during different well-known events in the uptown area. But thank you for checking in on whether that was 2 units or 1 unit.
So you'll check with the fire chief on that? Okay, good.
I will. It used to be something that the fire chief signed off on. Back in the day, I saw what you presented, or what's in your package, that has the code office signs off on it and the service safety director signs off on it. But there used to be where the fire chief would sign off on issues like that too. So I'll double check on that as well.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions on this ordinance from council members, members of the audience? Okay, thank you. We're moving on to ordinance for first reading. Ordinance 141-25 is an ordinance amending the 2025 appropriation ordinance 115-24, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. We discussed this in committee about an hour and 15 minutes ago. So allow me to read it for the first time. An ordinance amending the 2025 appropriation ordinance 115-24, be it ordained by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio. Section 1, the 2025 appropriation ordinance 115-24 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance a sum of $8,076 to Transportation Fund 214, Transaction Code 300, for the fourth quarter payment to HAPCAP and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Reisner. Comments or questions? Member Thomas.
Also, while I happen to be chatting at the auditor's office, Leanna mentioned that if we would be and reminded me in text, if we would be willing to suspend and pass this, it would make it a little easier for them to pay that. Just a request.
I have no intentions of doing so.
Any other comments or questions on this ordinance? Mayor, anything to add? Members of the public? Okay, moving on to resolutions for third reading. Resolution 05-25 is a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 05-25.
Second.
We've discussed this. This is just one of those things that we have to go through for the county in order to get reimbursed for some of the work that we do for Athens Township and Canaan Township. And if we want to get our money, we have to pass this.
Thank you, Member Eisner. Comments or questions from council on this resolution? Mayor, anything to add? Members of the public? All those in favor of adopting Resolution 05-25 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries and the resolution is adopted. Resolution 06-25 is a resolution to place the issue of increasing the city income tax by 0.20%, 0.20% per annum, beginning January 1, 2027, on the ballot at the next primary election on May 5th, 2026, and directing the Board of Elections of Athens County to conduct the election. Introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to have council adopt Resolution 06-25.
Second.
We've already passed an ordinance to place this issue on the ballot, but the law says we have to also have a resolution. This is that resolution, so I urge you to pass it.
Thank you, Member Eisner. Comments or questions on the resolution in front of us? Member Swank.
Just a quick question. Do we have an idea of how much on an annual basis the 0.2% increase will generate?
Take it away, Mayor.
Yeah,
Ballpark figure.
I will give you a ballpark, and that's all it is a ballpark. I believe it's about 1.8 million.
Okay.
But let me get that information from the auditor. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I should have came with that number on the top of my head, but I did not.
Because assuming council passes this, that'll be a very valuable piece of information as the campaign is rolled out to the public.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Other comments or questions from council? Anything to add, Mayor? Members of the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting Resolution 06-25 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries and the resolution is adopted. I would now take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Seconded.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 8:17 PM.